To begin our formal day 4, as I introduce this morning's honorable guest. She is a member of the National Assembly, Federal Parliament of Nepal, and earlier a member of the National Planning Commission. She is one of the members of Early Childhood Development Caucus, and she is also a policy expert with more than 25 years experience in sustainable development, peace and reconstruction, agrarian differentiation, rural livelihoods and social protection, gender equality and social inclusion mainstreaming, natural resource governance, climate smart agriculture, and disaster risk reduction. She also serves as an adjunct professor of development studies for agriculture and forestry university. She is one of the members of the high level task team in the Organic Agriculture and Management Board of Kathmandu Forestry College. She holds a PhD in development studies from the Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, Netherlands, and an MA from the University of Manchester. Please welcome the Honorable Dr. Bimala Rai Poudyal, member of the National Assembly, Nepal.
Namaste, namaste from Kathmandu. Namaste, everyone. Respected chair of the session, ARNIC team, the organizer of this event, honorables, excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to share my thoughts today in front of you. The topic that we are discussing now is young children in crisis and ways of addressing impact of pandemic and climate change. This is a coincidence that here we are talking about how to respond to adverse impact of climate change on young children. And just this week, many international newspapers, including the Science Daily magazine, published news that if carbon emissions are limited to the Paris Agreement's 1.5 degrees Celsius target through 2050, about 6,000 child deaths could be prevented each year just in Southern Africa. Heat-related deaths of young children could double by mid-century if high emissions continue. So we have choices. The choices are whether we continue business as usual or allow young children to die, or we come up with commitment to limit temperature rise through mitigation measures. And this story does not only apply in Southern Africa, it applies equally to other parts of the world, including Asia. Well, I'm not an expert on early childhood or pandemic and climate crisis, but I have observed how crises have affected young minds and bodies, creating long-lasting effects on economy and society. I have experienced how policymakers can bring changes to improve the situation, and a small increment in investment can help many overcome the impact. Therefore, I leave up to the experts and practitioners to quantify and elaborate impact of these multiple crises as evidence. I just summarize what I have observed so far. Let me quickly talk about climate crisis first. The climate crisis represents the greatest threat to child rights of our time. I have observed climate change impacting young children both directly and indirectly. As household members, it is obvious that young children are affected when the adverse effects of climate hazards limit their families' access to money, food, water, energy, and livelihood resources. Environmental hazards such as contamination of water and air take thousands of children's lives every year that with sustainable practices could be prevented. Agriculture and home-based enterprises have become more costly, uncertain, and labor demanding, especially for mothers. Added chores and responsibilities increases a young children's exposure to climate hazards. I have seen many young children sleeping on lap or back of their mothers when their mothers are busy in highly polluted streets in search of livelihoods. More time spent on additional labor or income generating activities means less time for learning and focusing on children's physical and mental health. Pneumonia has been one of the major factors killing thousands of young children in Nepal and is major reason. More time spent on additional labor and income generation activities means less time for learning and focusing on children's physical and mental health. Pneumonia has become one of the major factors killing thousands of young children in Nepal and has been one of the major reasons of children's direct exposure to pollution. Mental health has been an issue that is rising every day. In a nutshell, as a study conducted in Nepal concluded, crisis can be considered as child rights crisis, as it has exposed children to risk and threatened their rights to survive, right to growth, right to protection, and right to participate. COVID-19 has further made young children more vulnerable. UNICEF Nepal has revealed that 1 out of 5 children between ages of 2 to 4 years is not developing on track because of COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic has further increased the risk of macroeconomic instability due to declining trade volume, reduced GDP, and increased inflation. This has severely constrained families and nations' ability to care, protect, and invest on holistic development of young children. Whether it is natural or man-made, human being has overcome many global challenges for survival and for development. We have learned how important it is to act locally and collectively to respond to the global challenges. I believe we can address the adverse impact of these multiple crises on young children, focusing more on global commitment and local interventions. This requires a conscious efforts and investment. Challenges will not go away if we continue business as usual. We must think and act differently. State cannot continue leaving young children as sole responsibilities of parents, especially when parents and elders' own well-being is being threatened. Early childhood development centers have demonstrable impacts on number of development outcomes. They are found effective to protect young children as well as to empower parents with relevant knowledge, skills, motivations to act differently. Therefore, we must scale up early childhood development initiatives. Let me quickly touch upon what we, Member of Parliaments, have been doing in Nepal to scale up early childhood development interventions. Though early childhood development concept started long ago, access to quality services has remained a dream, especially for remote areas and for poor families. MPs established a loose network to work as advocate for young children's well-being. The network we named ECD Caucus worked not only in raising awareness, but also advocated to include access to early childhood development as a fundamental right of children. We succeeded. Access to ECD is now one of the rights of children recognized by the Constitution of Nepal. Once the right was ensured, we continued lobbying for national policies, strategies, and investment to ensure that the constitutional provision is translated into practices. As the country went on federalism, we expanded caucus from federal to province level to ensure that similar oversight is done at subnational and local level. Currently, 5 out of 7 provinces have already established such networks of parliamentarians and has been carrying the agenda in lawmaking, planning, and budgeting. The caucus has been found effective to raise awareness among policymakers and practitioners on the benefits of early childhood development and ways of scaling up. It also shares knowledge, tools, and innovative practices for quality expansions and strengthen multi-sectoral partnership for more investment, innovations, and scaling up. We are also advocating for better investment, though increasing investment is not yet up to the requirement. Universal access to early childhood development is still a challenge. There is a wide variation in quality of centers and accessibility varies greatly. Majority of centers are still concentrated in more accessible areas and young children in remote areas are left behind. Similarly, quality of those managed by public and private agencies also vary. Those who can afford get good practices, good services needed for the holistic development, and young children of the poor and disadvantaged groups end up with low standard ritual type of interventions. The difference in quality is not only because of lack of investment, but also because of lack of minimum standards and their implementation. With a continuous advocacy and oversight from the parliamentarian and civil society organizations, and because of the champions within the government, we have developed and rolled out a national strategy for early childhood education. Best part of the strategy are setting up standards for each city, clarifying roles and responsibilities of different agencies within the government, ensuring investment from all 3 federal units with greater role to local government, and establishing coordination and accountability mechanisms. Though the strategy is not yet fully operational, we are advocating for incorporating these actions in annual planning and budgets of all federal units. And this is where the role of caucus is very, very important. In order to reduce the risk and minimize impact of multiple crises on young children, it is essential that government develops climate change adaptation policies at local level, ensuring that problems and needs of young children are integrated thoroughly. It is equally important to clarify roles of different units of government and allocate adequate financial resources to young children friendly adaptation and mitigation measures to reduce effect and minimize the impact. Development and scaling of child development friendly alternative technologies in water management, agriculture, forest management, as well as markets, education, and health sectors can help a lot, making productive and service sectors more resilient to climate change and pandemic impacts. Examples we have observed in digital markets, online schools, and health counseling. We must continue investing in such technologies that minimizes children's and families' direct exposure to hazards. The most important is to take young children, their safety, protection, and development as a core business in planning, implementing, and monitoring all type of business and development activities. We know when there is no voices, there will be no accountability. Young children do not have voices, but do have voices, but we elder either do not listen them or do not understand them. Civil society, networks, and alliances have important role to support and raise up young children's voices. We need evidences to see urgent attention on national and local level impact of climate change coupled with COVID-19 on well-being of children. We need urgent action to prevent more children and their families from being pushed into poverty. And we need urgent collective action to make institutions accountable to young children. I'm optimistic that ARNIC type of network and alliances are situated strongly in a better place to perform these tasks. Let's work together. I look forward working with you all in pursuit of this grand cause of universal access to early childhood development and protecting them from vulnerabilities. Thank you for your attention. Wish you all a good day and namaste again from Nepal. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the closing ceremonies of this year's RNEC conference. What a journey it has been. Our next speaker will aptly close our forum. She has served as UNICEF representative to Zambia, Director of UNICEF's Partnership Office for Relations with the European Union, UNICEF representative to Rwanda, and as UNICEF's first representative to Montenegro. She has also undertaken assignments for UNICEF in Geneva, Kosovo, New York headquarters, and Vietnam, where she served as Chief of Education. Prior to joining UNICEF, she was based at the Center for History and Economics, King's College, Cambridge, where she worked as a research associate with the Common Security Forum, a network of academics and policymakers based out of Cambridge and Harvard universities. Please welcome UNICEF's Deputy Regional Director for South Asia, Ms. Nola Skinner.
Thank you so much for the very warm welcome and a very good morning to all the conference participants, distinguished delegates, the Executive Director of ARNEC, the Chair of the Board of Directors, colleagues and friends who share the mutual passion for optimal early childhood development. This Asia-Pacific Regional Conference on ECD has touched upon some of the most critical issues of our time: COVID-19, climate change, and environmental degradation, with far-reaching impact on young children's lives, particularly those from vulnerable groups, as we have heard over the last few days. Young children are paying the price for crises that are not of their making, and it's the most marginalized young children, children living in poverty without effective safety nets, who are paying the steepest price. It is clear that we must act now to protect their futures. We know that much of what happens to children in these early years determines the trajectory of their lives, and what we do now will determine the world we leave for them. In the South Asia region, we cannot help but see the impact of these issues around us, from severe heat waves we've recently witnessed in India and in Pakistan, to devastating floods that have hit Bangladesh and parts of India. As we speak, these floods have left 3.5 million children in Bangladesh in urgent need of clean drinking water, with the risk of waterborne diseases rising and children and communities cut off from essential food supplies. There were already thousands of young children in this area suffering from severe acute malnutrition, and many have been cut off from receiving the treatment they need, which has critical implications for their development. Approximately 620 million children across the region breathe polluted, toxic air. Air pollution is associated with one of the biggest killers of children, pneumonia, and also linked to asthma, bronchitis, and other respiratory infections. Air pollution can have particularly detrimental impacts on young children, damaging brain tissue and affecting their cognitive development, leading to lifelong consequences that can affect their learning outcomes and future potential. In addition, 22 million young children in the South Asia region have missed out on early childhood education in their critical preschool year due to closures resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. The resulting learning loss is exacerbating an existing learning crisis, with children missing out on key foundational competencies gained through early childhood education. And the economic fallout and impact on the pandemic have hit families hard. As we face these challenges, investing in early childhood development is even more urgent. As we've heard over the past few days, ECD and children's optimal development is what will prepare them for their futures, to cope with these challenges ahead and to build a better world. We call for bold and urgent action to address climate change, environmental degradation, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, so that every young child now and in the future has an equal opportunity to thrive and develop to their fullest potential, as is their right. Some key actions we've discussed are, number one, ensuring that climate-sensitive policies and plans and disaster risk reduction and response include a focus on the youngest children. We heard about the upcoming COP27 and the importance of us advocating with this key opportunity. Two, prioritizing investments in what we know is critical for young children's optimal development and for sustainable development and human capital development overall. Nurturing care for early childhood development, good health and nutrition, early learning opportunities, responsive care, and security and protection for young children. We need to prioritize early childhood education, including learning in learning recovery and in learning continuity and plans, and make sure that early learning centers, that schools are climate resistant. Engaging children, young people and parents and caregivers of young children in these issues in a meaningful way and empowering them as agents of change to create the future of the region. This is something UNICEF is working towards in providing children and young people with platforms to raise their concerns with policymakers and promote children's right to a healthy and safe environment and healthy and safe development. And finally, ensuring a focus on the most vulnerable young children so they are not made more vulnerable due to the impact of climate change, environmental degradation, COVID-19, and other crises. UNICEF has been and stands ready to continue supporting governments and partners in addressing these crises and promoting early childhood development, which is at the heart of our mandate. The very future of the countries in this region depends on this, and we hope we can join forces in this important cause, further energized by this fantastic forum and the important information, knowledge, and experience that has been shared over the course of the conference. Thank you for the privilege of addressing you this morning, and UNICEF is fully committed to walking hand in hand on the future of early childhood development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner, for that relevant and pressing closing message. And there's truly a lot to be thankful for, and for a final closing message of gratitude, I'd like to call on our next Board of Director, Dr. Clifford Mayers.
Well, hello, everyone, and goodbye, everyone. This is their closing, and it's been a full 4 days, as we've heard, and I'd like to take a moment now, if we can, to look at the reflection wall. Rowan, are you able to put that online? So as you can see, there's a number of questions that we explored in various means of breakout and reflection and pasting and posting. And one of the questions we have here is what concerns you most about these crises as they affect young children? It can be a real feeling of hopelessness sometimes when we see issues in the environment beyond our own control. But when we looked at these concerns, as you can scroll down there, you can see I'm worried that governments, communities, and caregivers still don't recognize how climate change or COVID-19 or environmental degradation is really affecting young children's development. So how do we get people to, it's a real concern, or how do we initiate the behavior change from the ground up in different sectors to address this? These are concerns that you were expressing. The second question we can see, what can we do with what we have learned from this meeting? And if we scroll down there, we can see different comments there. I can use the learning to inform curricula of the academic open university program that I'm working with, and make sure that these issues are brought into the pre-service ECC program. That's really practical. Another comment, if we look to the next question, the question 3 there, if you had to pitch to a policymaker about these crises, what would be your main points? And if you scroll down there, you can see a number of ideas come up there. You should pitch, here's a suggestion, I would pitch that it's vital to strengthen holistic ECD services for the youngest children. We need to emphasize how it's so interlinked and interconnected all these concerns are. And we can't just take isolation between sectors. We really need to address young children with all sectors hand in hand. There, great. So please, we have this these scrolled reflection wall here for you to look at and to share with each other. We're sorry we can't do this face to face in a virtual conference. But I'm just going to close now with some reflections about what we've discussed and learned this week, and what we can do as a movement to help young children address these crises. So here are some thoughts. First off, COVID-19 pandemic, it's been highlighted throughout these 4 days, and we must continue to advocate that ECD becomes a priority in emergency preparedness response plans in the future. ECD is always on the edge. It's got to be in the center. As we emphasize by all our panelists here, it's a new normal. These crises aren't going away, and we need to create not new ECE programs, but to protect and scale up the existing ones in the face of these ever-present emergencies. So the second area I want to say is that we need to communicate the importance, expand our network of ECD to other disciplines, the Global Environmental Policy Group, the higher education sectors, the climate science sectors. We need to link up with these guys and ensure that the right people are in the room. Private sector, youth, governments, grassroots, us, RNEC team, let's keep expanding our network and getting ECD front and center across these disciplines. Thirdly, we need to elevate ECD in the key element of climate change resilience. These adaptation plans are coming up. Climate change is becoming the globally recognized as a big issue. Let's keep pushing ECD right into the forefront of that discussion. We also need to make sure that national climate plans have the financing included for high quality, equitable, inclusive, development-based ECD. Let's get it, it's all linked together here. And finally, we need to constantly be elevating ECD as a fundamental and overarching program for child development. Climate resilience, development in the early years, all these projects that are working on it, we need to elevate ECD through our collective agencies front and center. So now we get closer to the closure. And we'll say that another thank you to all the partners that helped conceptualize and organize this. The board and the steering committees of members, the core team is Child Fund, Plan International and Save the Children. Our partners, Open Society Foundation, UNICEF, UNESCO, WHO, and the Bernard Van Leer Foundation. We've had ministers from across the region, members of parliament, and all the technical staff that supported their participation. A big thank you. It's been just so great to have your presence. All the presenters, our moderators, behind the scenes rapporteurs, thank you. Participants from 28 countries, thank you. The technical platform provider, Hubilo, and the TextXP people from India, fantastic. I mean, I want to say right now, everyone is saying, oh, these virtual conferences, they're so easy. We should do them all the time. So the Secretariat says, no way. They're doing face-to-face next year, okay? This was really lovely. Great job, you guys, but we're looking, so please contact Secretariat if your country is interested in hosting 2023. Let's get the ball rolling, but virtual, it looks like a dream. In reality, so in that line, thank you, Leah Guerrero. You've been a fantastic MC. You've energized us. You've kept us focused. You've get us prepared. You've got our names right. So thank you very much. And lastly, our dear Secretariat. Can we see you? You've pulled the conference together. You pulled it off. No one thought we could do it. Hooray, you guys. We've got all together now. Evelyn, Andrea, Rowan, and Joel are there in Manila working as a team. And we've got Siva. He's a steering committee member of ARNIC. He's there in supporting us all from India. So thank you guys. It's been priceless. It's just been fantastic. So we now have a little ending with a closing video. And I want to thank all of you participants, all of us here for joining and making it, finally getting our annual conferences back on track. Well done to all. Thank you to all, and farewell.
Oh, wow. You have captured the spirit of the conference, Dr. Cliff. Thank you so much for that captivating and heartwarming send-off. And there you have it, a highly relevant conference, esteemed speakers, engaged participants, all for the sustainable development and growth of our young children, our future. Thank you, everyone, for such a fruitful conference. You have all been truly wonderful. Once again, I'm Leah Guerrero. See you again in next year's ARNA conference. Be safe, Be well.